What types of hoops are you willing to jump through for a lens? In this instance, we're looking at a Computar Telecentric 55mm C-mount. I'm going to call it a macro lens. This is a lens that is designed for industrial use, and I have it still mounted on to the line scan camera that I got it with. So take that off and you can see the sensor for the line scan camera. This would just, show a single line. It would be used on a conveyor belt or something like that, where it was inspecting products, printing, something that was manufactured. Because this lens is an industrial lens and it had different purposes than a camera lens used for photography, there are a couple interesting differences going on. The first is that there are locks to hold the aperture and focus into place, and the barrel just extends and collapses, and there's actually a registration mark right there where I think the lens was set up for when it was used on the line scan camera. The aperture is clickless, rotates, there's a lock on there, lock to lock the focal point on the lens, and coming around you can see, let me make sure that's in focus, there's just 3 aperture blades, and it can actually be completely closed down like what you'll find in cine lenses, television lenses, things like that. So I always find the 3-blade apertures pretty interesting. In terms of construction, it's an all-metal lens. It's something that's going to spend time in an industrial environment, so it is well made. It weighs about 11.1 ounces, 315 grams. It doesn't seem excessively heavy when I was using it. I really had no issues, no complaints with the construction or weight of the lens. I made a previous video on adapting the C-mount lenses to micro four thirds. Here's my adapter, and this lens almost fits. What happens is the rim right there just barely causes issues to where it won't seat down completely. So I lose the ability to focus to infinity, but as I'm interested in using it as a macro lens, that isn't a huge issue. In terms of usability, I ran into several problems. The first is that this is a fully manual lens. Shooting macro, want to maximize that depth of field, which means you want to use smallish aperture. I was shooting somewhere between f11 and f16 for the sample images I was taking. And with that, there's not a lot of light coming to the lens to allow you to focus. I brought one of my lights over, 100-watt LED continuous lighting, and that gave me enough light to where I could actually focus with the camera. If you don't have that light going on, that's going to be a little bit more difficult to where, it's just going to be a huge hassle. And because the aperture is clickless, you can't adjust it, bring it all the way open, and then close it off and get repeatable results. I was using flash to take these sample images. So that's going to kind of be an issue if you don't have the setup that does allow you to get enough light to then take a photo with. The next thing is I have a tripod plate on the bottom here, but I was mounting it onto my slider, and because the lens doesn't mount correctly to my adapter, the aperture is at the bottom of the lens to where I have this mounted up. It was very difficult to get down here and adjust this in any way and then be able to see where the aperture is at because it's down there. So that was fairly annoying to deal with. It's not all doom and gloom. There are some nice things about the lens, and the first thing I noticed when I started using it is that the working distance is pretty nice. I have this ruler down here. I was taking a few photos of it to get an idea of what the magnification of the lens is on the camera. And working distance is somewhere between 5 and 6 inches at max extension on the lens. I'm going to go through and show the shots of the ruler that I took to give a rough estimate of the magnification you can expect on a micro four thirds sensor. Additionally, I used a 5mm and a 10mm extension ring to see what kind of additional magnification I would get with those. So just the lens on the adapter that I have, I got a magnification of 0.55 or about 1.82 to 1. Adding the 5mm extension ring, I got a magnification of 0.61 or approximately 1.64 to 1. And finally, with the 10mm extension ring on, I got a magnification of approximately 0.64 or 1.56 to 1. The test images that I'm going to show are of some delicious broccoli sprouts. And taking a look, see that the lens is sharp corner to corner. I didn't notice any major distortion, no vignetting, no chromatic aberration. So those are all things that I want to see in a macro lens, because I find that any of those gets really distracting when you're trying to get down there and you're going to be showing the image at a 1:1 resolution, really trying to bring out as much detail as possible. In addition to the shot with just the lens, here it is with the 5mm extension tube. You can notice a slight increase in magnification. And then with the 10mm extension tube, slightly more magnification. Really happy with how everything turned out. The value proposition comes down to the price of the lens. And in full disclosure, I have affiliate links in the description below to eBay and an empty Amazon page, most likely, to where you can purchase the lens. I get a small cut if you make any purchase through those links. It doesn't have to be the lens, and I greatly appreciate that. So looking at eBay, which is the only place that I was finding the lens available for sale. It seemed like the lowest prices that people were able to purchase the lens was about $100. To put that into some perspective, the native micro four thirds lenses that shoot macro are the Panasonic 30mm 2.8, which is about $300 new, $200 used on eBay. The Olympus 60mm macro lens, $500 new, about $310 on eBay. And the Rokinon 100mm, $500 new, about $270 on eBay. So you're looking at a lens that is, less than half the price of any of the comparable macro lenses. But with that, you're missing out on some key features. Again, you don't have automatic control of the diaphragm. This is going to make it a big issue if you're trying to focus without enough light going on, because you're not going to be able to open the lens up, close it down, shoot. So it's going to rule out things like probably insects or anything moving. You're going to be stuck basically doing studio work with the lens. And the other thing is that there is no autofocus on the Computar. It means it's going to be more difficult to have the lens pull double duty, and because maybe you have a different adapter, but mine doesn't focus to infinity, so that's going to kind of make doing portraits difficult, doing just general photography kind of difficult. So it's not going to pull double duty. It's going to be a lens that you're most likely going to want to strictly be doing studio work, basically tabletop macro photography. And in that sense, I think it would do well. And the final thing to keep in mind with this lens is if you're going to be hit with a large amount of depreciation, and I don't see that if you were to pick one of these up used. I wouldn't buy one new, but if you can find one used for a good price around that $100 mark, you can own it for a while and go ahead, and you don't really have to worry about being able to resell the lens. I think that you could probably sell one in a few weeks on eBay for a good price. And then you're looking at 15% in terms of eBay fees, PayPal fees, and then the shipping cost would about $4. Ship it first class, no problems there. You're looking at maybe $15 to $20 loss, and if you buy it really well and you wait around and you try to get a slightly higher price, probably won't cost you very much to own for the short term, 6 months, a year, something like that. Holding on longer, I don't know. Whereas the first party macro lenses, either the Panasonic or the Olympus or the Rokinon, which still has micro four thirds mount, if they come out with another version of that lens, going to be hit with a larger amount of depreciation. So tabletop macro photography, pretty good. Other uses, not so hot. So that's going to be it for this video. There's some other lenses I'm working on putting out a review for. I'm trying to get some macro stuff done with extension tubes and telephoto lenses and see how I like that. Get that extra working distance. Maybe they'll be good for outdoors, maybe not. And it's kind of cold, so that might slow me down in terms of getting that out. But hopefully you found this useful. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next video.